Here's what we're talking about today here on the Now. More states want to keep breeders away from pet stores. There's a debate over whether this move goes too far. And an increasing number of workers have feelings of loneliness, and it can cause people to miss work or even just make it hard for them to get another job. We're going to get some expert advice on what you can do at work to help yourself or one of your coworkers who may be struggling. And the Super Bowl. It all comes down to one person. We're not talking about a player. We will introduce you to the team behind the ball and the woman making the final stitch.
Thank you, Chris. I'm Amanda Starantino, and you're watching the Now Indy. Need help narrowing down the best education scenario for your young scholar? School Choice Week is helping Indiana parents find the right academic options. RTV6's Troy Washington walks us through how the week empowers parents to choose.
Janelle O'Bannon says times have changed when it comes to academics.
I was in school, it was either you go to public, township, or private. And you had to have money to go to private school, definitely.
Now parents aren't just choosing between public, private, or homeschool when it comes to selecting a quality and affordable education for their child. In addition to the main three that may come to mind, Indiana School Choice Week highlights all 6 choices, including charter schools, magnet schools, and online academies.
We look for schools that have the opportunity for them to advance in sports and performance arts.
O'Bannon has 3 children. Right now, her 11-year-old daughter attends public schools.
When I was in school, you just had ABC. Now she has a whole alphabet of things that she can do.
Her daughter attends IPS Butler Lab School 60, a school that mimics another option parents can consider, public magnet schools. The option offers an emphasis on a certain area of interest and is a free option that helps scholars hone in on their passions and aspirations.
She's got a lot of opportunities where she is right now.
Though her daughter is happy in her current classroom, this mother is open to learning more about Indiana charter schools, an option that arrived in Indiana in 2002 and has grown to more than 100 schools across the state. It's a tuition-free option for families.
For instance, I have a really good friend who lives up in Noblesville. Her daughter is super, super smart. They wouldn't advance her daughter where she was, so she actually had to come down to Tinley. And they actually put her in 2 grades higher than where she was. She tested out.
That isn't even where the options stop. Now students can attend classes fully online, and there are even free educational options out there if parents opt to go that route.
If I could, I would love to homeschool her because kids now are ridiculously mean.
Unfortunately, because of work, that's not the right fit for this family. But School Choice Week in Indiana wants to make sure all parents have the power to weigh all their options and choose. Working for you, Troy Washington, RTV6.
And in celebration of the week spotlighting every option out there, more than 1,300 events, activities, and celebrations are planned to be hosted by schools and families and other groups. More details on those events when you read this story on the IndyChannel.com. Kevin, still some cloudy skies out there today.
Don't feel alone. Monroe County, cloudy skies over Bloomington, but all 92 Indiana counties experiencing lots of clouds. A few of us may have a few flurries tonight, but really nothing of consequence. And look at how close temperatures are. We've only seen a 5-degree temperature range from morning low to afternoon high. 32 is our warmest. There's your northwest wind that will continue then the trend of maybe bringing in a little moisture off of the lake and northwest portions of the state, and they'll drift to the south and east. That's why I think the best chance for any flurries will be northeast of Indianapolis. Steady temperatures, a few flurries, temperature down to 30 by 10 o'clock tonight. Most cases will wake up tomorrow morning with temperatures right around that 30-degree mark. A couple spots to the north, a little cooler than that. We'll warm up slowly. Temperature by noon still just above the freezing mark, and there's your afternoon high with lots of cloud cover. There are changes, but most of those take place later in the week. You'll see the forecast for the next 4 days coming up.
Investigators continue to collect evidence in the helicopter crash that killed Kobe Bryant. Thomas Hoppe takes us to Los Angeles to see the tributes there.
The City of Angels stands still today.
LA is in mourning right now, man.
We're all very sad, you know.
It's like I can feel the pain that we're going through right now as Angelinos together.
He died in a helicopter crash.
A sobering loss, a reality too hard to believe.
It just cannot leave my mind.
We all know it's not supposed to be like that, but there's things that we have to accept and understand.
Like, it's Kobe Bryant, it's something that we don't expect, so yeah, it does make you appreciate life a little bit more.
Those come here outside the stadium he built to pay respects and reflect.
And I call it capturing the moment. Because if you don't capture the moment, you can't come back to it.
There will never be another Kobe. Especially the GOAT of LA.
It's not easy, man, you know.
Strong basketball player, cared about everybody, never took nothing for granted, and always was a team player.
The City of Angels stands still, but together.
Exactly, he died with her. He died with her. I wish that was my dad. He was always there for them.
In Los Angeles, I'm Thomas Hoppo reporting.
Powerful stuff, Thomas. Still so hard to believe. Now, the CDC is helping states diagnose coronavirus cases. Now, it's handing out test kits to priority states where there are suspected cases. The kits are for respiratory and urine samples. A biotech company in San Diego just developed a coronavirus vaccine. The company received a sequence of the virus from Chinese authorities. The vaccine is being manufactured to test on animals first. It should be available for human testing by early summer. All right, let's get back to our lineup here on the Now. An increasing number of workers are feeling lonely on the job. We're going to get some expert advice on what you can be doing at work to help yourself or a coworker who may be struggling.
And Keller, right now.
Anyone who hurts or kills a law enforcement animal could face stiffer penalties in Indiana under a new Senate bill. The bill would increase the penalty for hurting a law enforcement animal from a misdemeanor to a level 6 felony. This means people could face as much as 2.5 years in prison for their actions. The bill would also increase the penalty for killing a law enforcement animal. We had a recent incident here in central Indiana when Fisher's K-9 officer Harley was killed in the line of duty in November. Members of the Humane Society of the United States were at the State House today pushing for the legislation.
Our law enforcement animals, they put their lives on the line just like the police officers do each day. And we feel like people who intentionally inflict harm or end up killing a law enforcement animal should be punished in a way that appropriately reflects that type of harm.
The Humane Society was also pushing for a law prohibiting individuals from owning exotic animals as pets, such as lions, tigers, and yes, bears. And more news from the State House. Democratic Representative Pat Bauer from South Bend announced today he will not seek re-election this year. He is the longest serving member of the Indiana House and one of the country's longest service state legislators. He has spent 50 years in the General Assembly, serving 6 years as Speaker. And another Democratic member of the House also announced today she would not seek re-election. Carly Macer, who represents Speedway and part of the west side of Indianapolis, said it's time to pass the torch to the next generation of leaders. She was first elected in 2012. Last year, she considered a run for governor this year, but announced in August she would not do so.
Let's start the Now newsfeed. The president is excited about the new trade deal with China, but the first phase of that deal, it's not expected to have a huge impact on sales this year. Now, that's what 63% of companies surveyed by the National Association of Business Economists said. Facebook wants to end the Cambridge Analytica scandal once and for all. The social network, as well as the Justice Department, now asking a federal judge to approve its settlement with the FTC. That settlement worth $5 billion. Well, is the excitement over DNA testing going away? 23andMe is cutting 100 jobs. They say consumer demand has cooled off. Privacy concerns could also be a factor, according to the company. The workplace can be lonely for a lot of people, and health insurer Cigna looked into this and found that there was an increase over the last year in workers saying that they were lonely. Some say a lack of social support or meaningful social interactions contributed to that, and a lack of balance in daily activities like working too much and just not sleeping enough. Other issues included negative feelings about personal relationships and overall poor mental or physical health. Working remote can also have an impact.
So if you work from home, maybe you join a local co-working space or go to the library and just try to have more interaction with people.
Lonely people are more likely to miss work because of stress or an illness. Their productivity and quality of work tends to be lower, and they have higher turnover.
If people have decreased their social interactions and they're just feeling super isolated and lonely, they may have an inability to connect with job interviewers for their next job.
So whether you're the one feeling isolated or lonely, or you notice someone who might be, Vicky Salemi says it's important to go back to basics.
Face-to-face conversations or even phone calls that we haven't really used our phones in a while. If you're emailing someone in the next cubicle, something as simple as going out to lunch with someone or just grabbing coffee or having simple chatting, like chit-chatting at the water cooler or the coffee machine.
Now, chronic loneliness, it can put you at higher risk for serious health issues. All right, ahead in our lineup, the Super Bowl really all comes down to one person. We're not talking about a player. We're going to introduce you to the team behind the ball and the woman who makes the final stitch.
Live on CourtTV.com.
Let's start the Now News feed. Walmart is making sure its employees are fit as the company's rolling out a program where their workers can get gym memberships for $9 a paycheck. That comes to about $234 a year, much less than the national average. Now, Americans are eating less meat. Gallup survey found that 23% of Americans reported eating less last year. 72% said they ate about the same amount of meat. Researchers say a meat-intensive diet can lead to an increased risk of illnesses like heart disease. Well, could your phone calls, messages, and location predict whether you could have a mental health issue? Researchers in the United Kingdom are considering a system using those factors. They recently tested an algorithm that looked at factors like medical history. The White House has an ambitious goal to end all HIV transmission within the country by 2030. For AIDS research is talking about HIV status laws. They make it a crime to not disclose your status to someone you could transmit to. Today, there are HIV medications that create almost zero opportunity to transmit, and there are also daily pills that people who are HIV negative can take to lessen the risk of getting the disease from a partner by 90%. The CDC also recently found that states that had HIV status laws had no significant difference in HIV rates than states that didn't have a law. Millette says the laws create distrust within the healthcare system and fear of getting tested.
There's evidence showing that people in states who have these criminalization laws are less likely to get tested as frequently for HIV. If you don't get tested and if you don't know your HIV status, then there's that plausible deniability that you're HIV positive. So people don't want to know that.
HIV criminalization laws disproportionately impact African Americans, and African American men are among the highest demographics of new HIV cases. Nearly 30 states have HIV-specific criminal laws, but several states have recently pushed for a change after the American Medical Association called for a total repeal of HIV criminalization.
Valentine's Day is less than 3 weeks away. If you're thinking of marking the big day with a wedding, the Marion County Clerk's Office can help you out. Once again, the Clerk's Office will perform wedding ceremonies to raise money for the American Heart Association. You can have a civil ceremony or a vow renewal between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Friday, February 14th. In lieu of an officiant's fee, couples are asked to make a $50 donation to the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women campaign. Space is limited, so reservations are encouraged. What a nice little thing to do on Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, you know, we've had some big snows before on Valentine's Day. Not saying we will this time, but we certainly are due. We haven't had much this month, just 3/10 of an inch. We're one of the in the top 10 for least snowfall. Some flurries possible tonight and during the day tomorrow. Cloudy the next 3 days. Temperatures, they'll be in the 30s, so temperatures going nowhere until we get to the weekend. Then somewhat warmer air will arrive. All of the gray represents the cloud cover. There are a few flurries up towards South Bend coming off of Lake Michigan. Take your pick. Anywhere you look, temperatures 32 to 33 degrees. Generally speaking, there's one exception. Crawfordsville's at 30. Through the evening hours, not much changes. Clouds are in place, couple of flurries, especially north and east of Indy. Temperatures pretty locked in in the lower 30s. As we go through tomorrow, the temperature trend going nowhere quickly. Temperatures in the afternoon about 34 or 35, similar to what we've had today. Put the clouds in motion. You just watch the time change, and that's really it. Not expecting much in the way of moisture. Highs range from mid-30s to maybe 37, Bloomington, Columbus, Bedford, and Seymour. As you look at your Wednesday, temperature starts at 30, 34 at noon. Still can't break the cloud cover. Temperatures in the 30s, and that 4-day forecast as we get to the end of the week. At least we see a little sunshine by Thursday, 41 Friday.
In 1966, at the age of 19, Jane Helzer took a sewing job at an Ohio factory. She worked as a stitcher for Wilson Sporting Goods, making footballs for the Super Bowl for nearly 50 years. The longest tenured employee at Wilson sat down with Usher Qureshi to talk about the mark that she has left.
Before quarterback greats like Montana, Manning, or Brady ever handled a Super Bowl ball, it likely went through the hands of Jane Helzer.
Games that I've gone to have my camera ready to take a shot of that ball being kicked off and thinking, well, that's the ball I made.
For 48 years, Helzer was the lock stitch operator at Wilson's Ada, Ohio plant.
The machines were a lot bigger than what I was used to at home.
Her job was to make sure the interlocked stitching of the 4 leather panels of the NFL game ball wouldn't come apart.
Going over the ends of the ball is pretty tedious because we want those ends to be perfectly lined up.
Helzer has lived an extraordinary life, not only sewing Super Bowl footballs and rubbing shoulders with NFL giants.
There's my guy, Peyton Manning.
But having attended 10 Super Bowl championships.
Everybody watches the Super Bowl. It is a big deal.
Andy Wentling is Wilson Sporting Goods plant manager. He says while automation can improve some efficiencies, NFL footballs are handmade by expert craftsmen and women.
This is skilled trade. I mean, these people will sew for years. Jane's done it for 48, right? It takes you 6 months to be a good sewer.
In 2014, Helzer handed the ball off to a new lock stitch operator who's got some big cleats to fill.
Just seeing the pride that she took in what she did, and it just instilled a lot of that in me, and I kind of wanted to make her proud too.
Though retired, Helzer is still deeply involved at Wilson Sporting Goods, regularly giving tours and making nostalgic visits to her old lock stitch machine.
I wanted so bad to sit down and see if I could do it again.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably like riding a bicycle, you know.
Even today, a tool pocket with her name still hangs from her old sewing station.
I should have kept it as another souvenir, but I passed it on to Katie.
And now it's here. This is part of your legacy.
Right.
It's like you scratched your name in the desk.
Right.
The last marker of a job well done. Reporting from Ada, Ohio, I'm Usher Qureshi.
That's great, Usher. Thank you. Now, avoiding fake news, it's hard. Misinformation, it can often spread because it can be really difficult to know what's true. So we're partnering with the News Literacy Project to make sure that you get the facts to make your own decisions. Let's go to Annie Taylor with an explainer of what you're going to see here this week and how local schools are involved.
There is so much coming at us every day. How do we know what is fact and what's fiction? This week, we are partnering with the News Literacy Project to answer that question. What to trust and what not to trust. This News Literacy Project will play out all week in schools across the country. Our journalists will work side by side with students here at home to create a news literate generation that can spot misinformation and prevent others from spreading it. They'll collaborate with kids on topics that are important to our community. You'll see special coverage, events, and conversations around information and cutting through all the noise to get to the truth. Knowing what is fact and what is fiction is essential to a healthy democracy. And this week, we'll shine a light on misinformation, how to avoid it, and make sure it doesn't get in the way of knowing the true story.
So important, Annie. Thank you. All right, next in our lineup, more states are raising concerns about where the animals at pet stores are coming from. We're going to get into the debate over the role that breeders play.